As an association member, she resolved to gather intelligence and block further harm to Xia Nation. Glass's woman kept watch as three pioneers confronted the pair. Their leader sneered and demanded departure. Fang Yi stepped forward and greeted him casually, drawing attention and prompting tense silence. The cave leader mocked Glass's woman's ghost axe rank and lunged with a greatsword. Fang Yi unsheathed the tang sword, flames erupted along its edge. He blocked the leader's heavy strike with a compact stance. Flames leapt as blades collided. A shockwave threw the pioneers back. Glass's woman measured the aftermath, while Fang Yi held the front and prepared for further threats. An eye-patch leader bellowed and lunged toward them while ordering them to leave the cave. Fang Yi stepped forward, ignited his tang sword, and met the heavy strike with a compact stance. The collision unleashed a roaring shockwave and a ring of flames that hurled the pioneers into the air. A meditating figure and Glass's woman watched in shocked silence as the cave filled with smoke and ringing heat. Fang Yi held the line and readied himself for more violence. An off-screen voice intoned that many cultivators believed only in survival of the fittest. Fang Yi tightened his grip and watched for further threats. Fang Yi had stepped forward and fixed his grip on the tang sword, eyes narrowed. He drove the blade down and met the leader's advance, sparks and light erupting as the weapon ignited. The strike slammed into the floor and sent a burst of heat. Debris scattered and pioneers were knocked off balance. The cave leader reeled back. Fang Yi held the blade at his throat and forced him backward. Glass's woman and others remained stunned at the edge of the smoke. Fang Yi held the perimeter and barked a single command for them to leave. Fang Yi had pushed the cave leader back and held the perimeter while others recoiled. A second explosion then rocked the chamber and sent debris through the corridor. Several pioneers tumbled and were flung toward the widening rift as the tunnel shook. A panicked shout cut across the tunnel and ordered them to run. Fang Yi drove the tang sword in a controlled sweep that cleared the immediate threat and kept the path open. Glass's woman stood stunned at the tunnel mouth as survivors gathered and then cheered his strike. Fang Yi smiled, deflected the praise, and suggested they move on before more danger appeared. Fang Yi had driven the cave leader back, cleared the path, and held the perimeter after the tunnel's explosion. Survivors gathered and cheered briefly before following him deeper into the cavern. The group advanced while the cavern's spiritual energy remained depleted. Glass's woman trailed at the tunnel mouth and worried aloud about the sword's potential devastation had it landed. She inferred Fang Yi's status as a top-tier pioneer with a high-level attribute and exceptional talent. She clenched her fist and resolved to report his presence to the organization before they moved on. The field report reached the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association office, and Xiaoya picked up the call. She paused, gave a guarded reply, then entered the sighting into the association database and requested immediate updates. She tapped the transfer button and vowed to notify regional branches if anything changed. A senior teacher scanned the entry and warned that high-attribute pioneers gained status and influence, so the discovery required monitoring. Younger staff reacted with cautious excitement and called the event lucky. The office preserved the record and prepared to escalate the matter to higher centers. The association had preserved the report and prepared to escalate matters. Inside the office, the teacher massaged his temple and admitted the role had become burdensome. He considered resigning. Outside the campus, the morning sun rose over the building and students gathered. A hooded Fang Yi walked with a large sword on his back and immediately drew attention. Bystanders whispered that his look was like cosplay and praised his presence. A small cluster followed and cheered. Fang Yi briefly covered his mouth, stayed mostly silent, and then glanced at his phone. News alerts scrolled across a phone, reporting strange energy and a dragon sighting nearby. Fang Yi read the headlines and admitted his internal flame had erupted at 20,000 degrees. He blamed his carelessness for the phenomenon and worried about identity exposure. He considered who had revealed him and suspected Cold Lei or Xiaoya might be responsible. Fang Yu recalled absorbing vast Yang spiritual energy and hoped one more cycle would break his barrier. He slung his Tang sword and decided without delay to head for the back mountain. A cluster of students followed him across the campus, cheering as the sun rose. 5 minutes later, he reached the mountains behind his house and prepared to climb. Phone alerts scrolled headlines about strange energy and a distant dragon sighting. Fang Yu read them and admitted his internal flame had reached 20,000 degrees. He blamed his careless actions and feared his secret identity would be exposed. He suspected Cold Li or Zioya had deliberately leaked the report publicly. Fang Yu remembered absorbing much Yang energy and hoped one more cycle would break his barrier. He slung his Tang sword and left for the back mountain with a handful of students. Nearby, Su Qingying finished restoring a garden plot, struck her shovel into the soil, and exhaled relief. Phone alerts scrolled headlines about strange energy and a distant dragon sighting. Fang Yu read them and admitted his internal flame had reached 20,000 degrees. He blamed his carelessness and feared his identity would be exposed. He suspected Cold Li or Zioya had leaked the report. He had absorbed much Yang energy and hoped one more cycle would break his barrier. He slung his Tang sword and left for the back mountain with a handful of students. Nearby, Su Qingying finished restoring a garden plot and exhaled relief. On the mountain, a silver-haired investigator saw a blinding core flare. A luminous sphere formed and spun into a vast, swirling portal. She wondered if someone was about to break into the 3-star Ghost Axe realm. She called the force monstrous and feared the chaos it might bring. Phone alerts scrolled headlines about strange energy and a distant dragon sighting. Fang Yu read them and admitted his internal flame had reached 20,000 degrees. He blamed his carelessness, feared exposure, and suspected Cold Li or Zioya had leaked reports. He slung his Tang sword and left for the back mountain with a handful of students. Nearby, Su Qingying finished restoring a garden plot and exhaled relief. On the mountain, the silver-haired woman detected a blinding core flare and a luminous sphere formed. The sphere spun into a vast, swirling portal, and she feared an intruder might break through. She decided to investigate, sprinted toward the disturbance, and vowed she must catch the intruder. Fang Yu marched into the clearing and drew his Tang sword with steady resolve. He channeled internal flame and launched a blade of golden light toward the sky. A luminous sphere coalesced above and spun into a widening vortex of rift energy. Shadow tendrils writhed at the portal's edges as the forest air tightened. He countered by tracing sigils, causing golden constructs to bloom and orbit his form. He seated himself amid the constructs and entered a focused meditative stance to stabilize the opening. His eyes ignited with burning light as he prepared to repel any intruder. A golden axe had coalesced above the clearing, spinning within a ring of rift light. It arced down with measured force as a hooded figure sprinted beneath it. Observers gasped and called it a divine axe. Fang Yu's golden constructs shimmered nearby as he maintained his meditative stance. The silver-haired woman watched, stunned, and remembered her own failed attempt against a Ghost Axe 2-star level. She had been bedded and bloodied for days by that recoil. Now she could not account for the wielder's precision and refined spiritual threads. The scene tightened as the axe slashed and spiritual energy flared outward. A golden axe had coalesced above the clearing and spun inside a ring of rift light. It arced down with measured force while a hooded figure sprinted beneath it. Observers gasped and called the weapon a divine axe as sparks flared. Fang Yu's golden constructs shimmered as he held a steady meditative stance nearby. The silver-haired woman watched stunned and remembered how a ghost axe had bloodied her. She could not explain the wielder's precise rhythm nor the refined spiritual threads. The axe slashed and spiritual energy flared outward, then moved toward the eastern direction. A golden axe formed above the clearing and spun inside a rift of light. The hooded figure sprinted beneath its arc, while observers gasped and named it a divine axe. Fang Yu remained nearby in calm meditation as his golden constructs shimmered. The silver-haired woman watched and remembered a ghost axe that had once bloodied her. The axe slashed and sent spiritual energy outward, then east. Energy surged into Fang Yi, wrapping him in golden threads as he rose. The system then declared his breakthrough into the Ghost Axe Realm 2-star. A golden axe formed above the clearing and spun inside a rift of light. The hooded figure sprinted beneath its arc, while observers named it a divine axe. Fang Yi remained nearby, calm in meditation as his golden constructs shimmered. The silver-haired woman remembered a ghost axe that had once bloodied her. The axe slashed and sent spiritual energy east. That surge wrapped Fang Yi in golden threads and lifted him. The system announced his breakthrough into the Ghost Axe Realm 2-star. After the blast, residual currents tore through the clearing. The silver-haired woman lunged, but missed the fleeing figure and was pulled into a spiraling rift of light. A golden axe had formed within a rift and slashed through the clearing, while the hooded figure ran beneath its arc. Fang Yi stayed calm in meditation as his golden constructs shimmered. The silver-haired woman remembered a bloodied ghost axe. The slashing surge wrapped Fang Yi in golden threads and lifted him. The system announced his Ghost Axe Realm 2-star breakthrough. Residual currents tore through the clearing. She lunged, missed the fleeing figure, and was pulled into a spiraling rift. Later, she recovered beneath sunlit trees and addressed the hooded man with a formal invitation from the association. The golden axe had formed earlier and slashed through the clearing while a rift opened. Fang Yi had remained calm in meditation as his golden constructs shimmered. The system had declared Fang Yi's Ghost Axe Realm 2-star breakthrough after the surge lifted him. Residual currents tore the clearing and pulled the silver-haired woman into a rift. She later recovered beneath sunlit trees and tracked the fleeing hooded figure. He approached with prepared documents and an invitation from the association. She hesitated and chose soft words. When he asked why, she explained Xia nations aim to gather, guide, and protect pioneers. The golden axe formed and cut through the clearing as a rift opened. Fang Yi completed his Ghost Axe Realm 2-star breakthrough amidst the surge. Residual currents tore the clearing and pulled the silver-haired woman through a rift. She later recovered under sunlit trees and tracked the fleeing hooded figure. He approached carrying documents and an invitation from the association. He argued that pioneers must unite against the resurgence of spiritual energy. He warned he could not fully trust her if she refused. The silver-haired woman fell silent and hesitated before she replied. Su Qingying stepped forward, announced her name, and raised her Spiritual Energy Association ID high as proof. She said she had been an athlete before the revival and pleaded for belief. The hooded figure inspected the card and glanced at a framed photograph on a nearby wall. He admitted vague recognition and noted her clear physical advantage. He observed that those with superior bodies became pioneers more quickly and that her speed explained much. Su Qingying waited while he weighed alliance against lingering distrust. Su Qingying had presented her credentials and waited while the hooded figure studied her. He then spoke of knowledge from his previous life and claimed the nation of Xia had failed and humanity became extinct. A ruined city and the void maw framed his words. He said he had returned with the system but would not join the game yet because the timing was wrong. The silver-haired woman told him she remembered him. The hooded figure replied that he would think about it and leapt away to consider his next move. Su Qingying had presented her credentials while the hooded figure studied them and spoke. He claimed Xia had fallen and humans faced extinction when the void maw had appeared. He said he had returned with the system but would not join the game yet. The silver-haired woman stepped forward and told him she remembered him before. He then ordered her to keep his location secret from others for now. He noted the association would not dare anger pioneers and that he could use that to his advantage. She offered to cooperate, but warned the association had noticed visible changes after his breakthrough. She suggested filing a report half-truth, half-falsehood to conceal the facts. After a pause, he agreed and slipped away while she called out, "Wait." After the hooded figure slipped away, the silver-haired woman remained and agreed to conceal his breakthrough from the association. She began tracking him through the forest, following faint disturbances and rifts in the undergrowth. Each attempt ended in failure. She muttered that he was deliberately avoiding capture. She exhausted herself erasing the traces he left and felt the strain in her steps and hands. A distant voice called out and suggested it was good she was currently on an outside mission. The remark pulled her focus from pursuit back toward the task at hand. While on the outside mission she had accepted, the silver-haired woman paused to listen. An announcer reported that anomalous entities had reappeared across regions. She flinched and recalled the creatures she could not forget, cold, cruel, and sometimes bloodthirsty. Visions of red-eyed beasts moved over ruined cityscapes as the report explained their origin. They drew energy from restored spiritual energy in pollution zones. Some twisted into monsters that devoured humans. Some disguised themselves as unnatural disasters and killed without end, expanding pollution zones. The reminder tightened her resolve and refocused her on containment and investigation. The silver-haired woman had paused when the report warned of returning anomalies. A massive void maw opened over a ruined city and glowed with red eyes and teeth. The announcer warned that if left unchecked, the creatures would gain destructive properties and devour humans. Storms rolled in as lightning struck a tower. A hooded figure stepped into rain under a street lamp and left a wet footprint. Emergency alerts scrolled on screens advising thunderstorm warnings and tourist area closures. The reminder hardened the silver-haired woman's resolve to contain and hunt the threats. The storm had intensified, and rain hammered the ruined city with driving force. Lightning stitched the sky and struck towers, drawing strange patterns of blue light. Observers murmured that they had not seen a storm like this in decades. Someone asked what kind of supreme power performed a lightning rite here. A hooded figure stepped into the rain and scanned the bright center cautiously. A young man with dark hair watched with a red eye and unreadable face. The storm's core pulsed with concentrated energy, but its origin remained unclear. The silver-haired woman had prepared to hunt and contain whatever emerged from it. The storm had grown worse, and rain hammered the ruined city with driving force. Lightning stitched the sky and struck towers, leaving blue tracings across the clouds. Observers murmured they had not seen such a storm in decades. A hooded figure stepped into the rain and scanned the bright center with caution. A young man with dark hair watched with a red eye and unreadable face from the crowd. The storm's core pulsed with concentrated energy, but its origin remained unclear. The silver-haired woman prepared to hunt and contain whatever emerged. At the mountain peak, lightning crowned a rift. The hooded figure pointed and said, "There." Then a white-caped figure dove down through the rain toward the light. The storm had intensified as the hooded figure dropped onto slick rock and steadied himself. The system flashed an alert reporting a pollution zone at Yaowang Mountain. The hooded figure summoned a translucent interface and scanned the terse notice. Rain hammered the trees while the valley below showed dark smoke and twisted trunks. The notice listed peak height and tourist status, but left the pollution level unknown. He paused beneath the cape, then advanced toward the poison slope with measured steps. The storm intensified as he moved through drenched trees toward the poisoned slope below. The system had flagged Yaowang Mountain with a pollution notice he had scanned. He advanced with measured steps under the cape, and rain lashed his cloak. He paused, focused, and narrowed his red eye at the ground ahead. A sudden flare lit the pupil, and he tensed his stance. Without warning, a pillar of crackling blue energy shot upward near his boots. Lightning-laced light carved the night as he watched, unreadable beneath the hood. The system had flagged Yaowang Mountain for pollution. The hooded figure moved through drenched trees toward the poisoned slope. He advanced with measured steps under his cape. Rain lashed the fabric. He paused and narrowed a red eye at the ground. A flare lit his pupil, and he tensed. A pillar of crackling blue energy shot upward near his boots. The column carved light through the night and rose into the sky above him. Cold electric light bathed his cloak. He watched without change beneath the hood. He braced for what came next. The system had flagged Mount Yaowang for pollution. The hooded figure moved through drenched trees toward the poisoned slope and paused under his cape. Rain lashed the fabric as he narrowed a red eye at the ground. A pillar of crackling blue energy shot up near his boots and carved light through the night. He watched without change beneath the hood and braced for what came next. At headquarters, a monitor showed a sharp upward trend in spiritual energy on Mount Yaowang. The teacher ordered the site closed, designated it a contamination zone, and urgently summoned Su Qingying to report. At headquarters, officials gathered around a long table and examined the system readouts. They classified Mount Yaowang as an A-level contamination zone and halted ascents. The system projected thunder-type energy would reach the explosion threshold within 1 hour. Officials warned the situation could escalate to S-level and trigger an emergency plan. Su Qingying reviewed the data and stated no explorer in range could approach safely. Another analyst reported calculations showing even 3-star explorers faced a 100% mortality rate. The teacher ordered the mountain foot sealed immediately and sent patrols to prevent climbing. At headquarters, officials reviewed the system readouts and labeled Mount Yaowang an A-level contamination zone. They halted ascents and warned the thunder-type energy would reach explosion threshold within an hour. Su Qingying and analysts confirmed no explorer could approach without certain death. The teacher ordered the mountain foot sealed and patrols dispatched to prevent climbs. A senior official insisted the threat be eliminated at its root before reassessment. Before teams could mobilize, a surge of blue spiritual energy slammed into the slope, shattering rock and gouging the earth while the system readings spiked and instability grew. Headquarters staff labeled Mount Yaowang an A-level contamination site after system readouts rose. They halted ascents and warned the thunder energy would reach explosion threshold within an hour. The teacher ordered the mountain foot sealed and patrols dispatched to prevent climbs. Before teams could mobilize, a surge of blue spiritual energy slammed into the slope. Rock shattered and the earth was gouged while system instability spiked. A hooded figure emerged inside the blast and steadied themselves with controlled breath. They invoked the Yin-Yang breathing technique to temper the incoming energy. Yellow flame wrapped their body while blue lightning danced along the ground. They understood extracting the purest thunder energy required reaching the storm's center. They resolved to push toward Mount Yaowang's peak to reach that center. Headquarters had sealed Mount Yaowang after system readouts spiked. A thunder surge gouged the slope and ruptured stone, while mutated animals emerged in torn earth. The hooded figure steadied themselves and practiced Yin-Yang breathing. Yellow flame wrapped their body as blue lightning danced along the ground. They observed how the food chain had reversed and how simple rabbits could now threaten humans. They reviewed their training, Yin-Yang breathing and the flaming sword style combined with Tang sword enhancements, but they admitted over-reliance on a weapon created grievous weaknesses. They resolved to become stronger themselves to defeat deceptive creatures and reach the storm's core. Headquarters had sealed Mount Yaowang after system readouts spiked, and the hooded figure remained at the storm's edge. They inhaled Yin-Yang breath and summoned yellow flame. Blue lightning crawled across their skin and hardened tendon and nerve. The figure stepped into the thunder and sought any tempering opportunity the storm offered. They dove through crashing currents. They struck fractured ground and funneled thunder into their core. An electric blue ribbon wrapped their frame. They vowed to rely on their body rather than a weapon and resolved to grow stronger or perish beneath the storm's weight. The hooded figure had stood at the storm's edge and hardened their body. They then gripped a burning blade that pulsed with yellow flame. Blue lightning crawled along their skin as an electric ribbon wrapped their frame. They drew the blade and thrust it forward, channeling thunder into a concentrated arc. The arc cleaved through the air and exploded into a blinding blue discharge. Someone or something on the receiving end screamed as light and force shattered the space. The figure kept their eyes cold and pressed onward despite the impact. The hooded figure screamed as a concentrated arc of blue thunder erupted from his blade. The discharge struck the target and shredded it into jagged blue shards and light. Noise and force warped the air while the figure staggered and coughed blood. He forced himself upright and gripped the blade as lightning ran along his skin. The blade burned with a yellow flame, and the narrator named its thunder property. It was identified as an original divine punishment force, salvaged and repurposed for war. The hooded figure's blade had erupted in blue thunder and shredded its target. Fang Yi felt immense pressure from the rift as a concentrated energy node pulsed above him. The force sought to force him to his knees, but he steadied himself and recalled the system's warning. He resolved to touch the energy directly. Lightning danced and pain flared across his skin as he centered his breath. He located the breathing technique within and unleashed it. The Jin-Yang breathing technique burst from him as a blazing golden pillar that struck up into the rift's thunder. Fang Yi planted his feet against the rift and braced through rising pressure. He forced his hand into the pulsating node despite lightning lancing across his skin. He recalled the system warning and located the Jin-Yang breathing technique within. The technique erupted from him as a blazing golden pillar and struck the rift. Lightning and fire collided, producing a violent burst that shook nearby stone. Fang Yi's blade flared with molten light and cleaved through the impact. He remained upright, muscles tensed and eyes burning with grim focus. The rift recoiled but still pulsed vast blue energy into the air. Fang Yi planted his feet against the rift and forced his hand into the pulsating node. He drew the Jin-Yang breathing technique from the system and expelled it as a blazing pillar. Lightning and fire collided at the rift and tore stone outward in a violent burst. His Tang sword flared with molten light and cleaved through the shock. The rift recoiled but still vomited vast blue thunder energy into the chamber. The torrent struck Fang Yi and left his muscles numb and breath shallow. He braced his stance, drove the blade inward, and resisted the killing force. Fang Yi planted his feet against the rift and thrust Tang's sword into the tearing breach. Blue thunder erupted and raced along the blade as molten light met raw energy. The rift coughed a vast thunder torrent that battered his body and chilled his muscles. The system flagged the surge and displayed a drafting notice for a thunder attribute. Far above in the city, a small crowd watched lightning cleave the sky and exchanged worried remarks. Fang Yi steadied his grip and pushed the blade deeper against the killing force. The system announced refined divine thunder power and displayed a brief drafting notice. A secondary message granted 5 training points and instructed him to summon heavenly lightning. Blue and gold lightning wrapped his body and raced along Tang's sword's blade. Fang Yi's muscles chilled under the torrent while his stance held against the rift. Energy stitched into his bones and tempered flesh into a weapon and a shield. He declared thunder his spear and thunder his shield and readied to advance. Above the city, the crowd watched lightning cleave the sky and murmured in worry. The scene held with brittle calm as the system logged the attribute change. The system displayed a judgmental thunder attribute and asked Fang Yi to spend writing points for double critical damage. He hesitated and examined options. He considered infusing Tang's sword, but worried the thunder would stiffen the blade, corrupt its sun attribute, or even fracture the weapon. He resolved instead to graft the thunder into his right hand. Blue and gold lightning coalesced around his arm and along Tang's sword, while cold energy stitched into bone and flesh. He braced himself as the system presented a final confirmation prompt to implant the attribute. The system asked for final confirmation to graft its thunder attribute. Fang Yi hesitated, then consented. Blue and gold lightning braided around his right hand and along Tang's sword. Cold energy stitched into his bone and flesh. He braced as pain flared, and the interface confirmed implantation. The next morning at Yuliang Peak, Captain Han and several observers scanned the valley. The contamination level had dropped from peak to mild within 3 hours. Sensors still detected residual electric charge lingering in the air above the river. The system had grafted a thunder attribute into Fangyi, and sensors still showed residual electric charge above the river. At Yuliang Peak, Captain Han knelt in the rain and probed a faintly glowing residue on the ground. The silver-haired investigator confirmed the mark proved a seeker had been there, but she could not sense any attributes. She tested the soil and said last night's rain had washed away all readable traces and might have removed older signatures. With no clear signature, Captain Han estimated the seeker had likely left safely around 8 p.m. Sensors still registered residual electric charge above the river near Fangyi's path. At Yuliang Peak, Captain Han knelt in the rain and examined faint residue. The silver-haired woman said the mark proved a seeker had been present but showed no attributes. She warned last night's rain washed away readable traces and likely removed older signatures. Captain Han reconstructed the timeline and said the phenomenon began around 6 p.m. They sealed the mountain foot at 7, so the seeker probably ascended before closure and eluded detection. Captain Han suggested the seeker possessed thunder-related power, which let him endure lightning and possibly alter the phenomenon. Sensors still recorded residual electric charge above the river near Fangyi's path. Captain Han and the silver-haired woman reviewed the evidence at Yuliang Peak. Captain Han reconstructed the timeline and placed the phenomenon around 6 p.m. They concluded a seeker with thunder power probably ascended before the mountain closed. They warned an unknown seeker could endanger society and ordered immediate pursuit. Fangyi sneezed on his couch, unaware of the decree. An official broadcast mobilized cloaked agents and announced a temporary code name for the target. The monitoring stations still showed residual electric charge above the river near Fangyi's route. At Yuliang Peak, Captain Han and the silver-haired woman reconstructed the incident timeline. They placed the event at approximately 6 p.m. and suspected a thunder seeker had ascended. Command ordered immediate pursuit and warned an unknown seeker could endanger the public. The system broadcast issued a temporary code name and mobilized cloaked agents across affected districts. A shadowed silhouette surged through exposed lightning, and the new label appeared as the Tyrant. Fangyi remained unaware and sneezed on his couch far from the disturbance. Monitoring stations still showed residual electric charge above the river near Fangyi's route. At Yuliang Peak, Captain Han and the silver-haired woman reconstructed the 6 p.m. timeline and suspected a thunder seeker. The system assigned the label the Tyrant and mobilized cloaked agents, while the Union moved to recruit the figure, and a high-ranking applicant attempted contact. On a rain-slick summit, Su Qingying was told to submit her report to Captain Han. Far from the peak Fang, he then appeared with the Tang sword blazing as lightning and shadow coiled around him. Monitoring stations still registered residual electric charge above the river along Fangyi's route. At Yuliang Peak, Captain Han and the silver-haired woman reconstructed the 6 p.m. timeline and suspected a thunder seeker. The system had labeled the subject the Tyrant and mobilized cloaked agents, while the Union pursued recruitment. On a rain-slick summit, Captain Han relayed that the applicant had previously purified a class pollution anomaly at Qingcheng University's North Gate. The silver-haired woman recalled finding the mutated rabbit corpse and its scorching solar attribute. She planned to approach the applicant, but panicked that full disclosure would expose her identity. Rain streaked over the summit as Captain Han considered the report. He muttered that the subject had a solar element. The silver-haired woman stood at attention and accepted his praise. She insisted the duty required continued effort and professionalism. Captain Han outlined a quiet public strategy and warned against online disclosure. An older official agreed, while the woman exhaled relief. When the meeting ended, she thought it was finally over. A caption marked Fangyi's home below the summit scene. Rain had streaked over the summit, while Captain Han reviewed the report and praised the silver-haired woman. She accepted the praise and vowed continued professionalism, while officials warned against online disclosure. A caption then marked Fang Yi's home below the summit. Inside, Fang Yi practiced the golden sun breathing technique, and bright energy wrapped the jacket. He lifted the restored garment and sensed a new thunder attribute within it. His right hand underwent a physical transformation, becoming thunderstruck and his strongest limb. Blue arcs traced his fingers, and power surged as he neared a breakthrough point. Fang Yi had reached a breakthrough. The thunder attribute awakened in his right hand. Blue arcs coiled around his fingers, and light pulsed along his arm. He noted the thunder had become docile after implantation. A flash of memory returned of unbearable pain when he first used the solar attribute. He inferred his body had absorbed part of the thunder's raw violence, weakening it. The system reported that the thunder attribute dealt 300% critical damage to evil anomalous entities. He grinned at the prospect of testing its power. A sudden alert then interrupted him and he froze, sensing an incoming threat. Fang Yi checked his phone and asked what was happening as alerts stacked at the top of his watch list. The screen flashed a breaking news banner and an emergency bulletin scrolled across it. He recalled that warnings often hid chances for applicants and felt the thunder attribute pulse in his right hand. Blue arcs coiled around his fingers, and light raced up his arm as the implant settled. He resolved to seize any opportunity, even if it destroyed his path or cost his life. An incoming alert then arrived, and he froze, eyes narrowing as he sensed a nearby threat. An enormous blast tore open a chemical factory, and orange flames consumed the skyline as emergency banners scrolled. Social feeds filled with alarm and questions about pollution or sabotage. The news frame and crowd chatter dominated Fang Yi's watch list. He scanned the images and frowned at the ruined scenes. A cold smell prickled his memory, and a chill settled in his chest. He remembered a terrifying entity from a previous life he had almost lost himself to. A shadowed maw and a red-eyed hand appeared at his side and growled low. Fang Yi tightened his fingers around his implant and braced for contact. After the factory blast, the ruined street still smoked under a thin orange haze. Fang Yi crouched behind broken concrete and watched feeds flicker on his implant. He smelled the cold iron scent he associated with the shadowed maw. A red-eyed beast moved from the wreckage and padded forward on long claws. It bared its muzzle and low growled as it neared his hiding place. Fang Yi clamped a hand to his mouth and tightened his grip on his implant.